This is my favorite MIDI controller of all time. It's called the Ableton Push 2. It's absolutely amazing. It does so many different things. It allows me to control my entire DAW straight from the controller. I absolutely love it. It is really expensive, but it was worth every penny, and it just fits my workflow perfectly. Today, I'm not really here to talk about this. I wanted to talk about you, and I want to help you figure out which one is the right MIDI controller for you specifically. EdTalenti on the beat. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, recently I have been a little bit uninspired. I'm not sure if it's like the COVID months, just being locked in the house for so long and then coming back out. I don't know if it's the change of season. Right now it's so stupid hot. Like, I'm just sitting here talking to you and I'm completely drenched, and I hate that. I don't know exactly what it is, but one thing that I do know that I've learned over all these years of doing like music and creative stuff is that inspiration comes in waves. Now, even though we're not necessarily in control of like how or when or how hard these waves of inspiration are going to be, over time, I have learned some strategies to just kind of learn how to trigger them, how to make them come back to me. In a way, it's kind of like giving your inspiration a little pep talk to just make it come back to you full force. Stay with me here. I know that doesn't seem like it, but this has a lot to do with MIDI controllers. One of the things that's been helping me tremendously is just taking an hour out of my day, stopping everything that I'm doing, get on a bike and just go and just bike around. It's so nice. It just helps my brain kind of like reset. I also listen to a lot of podcasts, like basically all day while I'm doing other things. They really help me focus, they help me think about stuff that is not necessarily work, and by creating that separation between the work and what I'm actually listening to, I actually get back that excitement to just go back to work. Did that make any sense? It's kind of like the process of separating yourself from something so that you can see it from an outside perspective and you can really start appreciating it and missing it a lot more, and you just get excited to come back to it. Some of my current favorites include Philosophize This and Radiolab. They're both really great. Another thing that usually really helps me like restart those waves of inspiration is rearranging my space. I'm not even talking about like buying new stuff or anything like that, but just like turning the furniture around, like my desk, moving it from here to there. I don't know, just changing the perspective on the room. Sometimes it just changes the perspective on the creative side as well. I'm not really sure if you've ever experienced that, but for me, it works almost every time. Right, so let's get to the point of the video, the reason why you probably clicked on the title in the first place, MIDI controllers. Now, as you can probably imagine, over the course of the years, I accumulated a whole bunch of different MIDI controllers. I have a lot of MIDI controllers. This is kind of embarrassing. I had a phase where I was really obsessed with them, so I just bought a bunch. Some companies sent me some more. I have a lot of MIDI controllers, pads, keyboards, I even have a MIDI guitar. I have a lot. So what have I learned after years of accumulating a bunch of MIDI controllers? I have learned that the one purpose that a MIDI controller is meant to serve is to inspire you, is to give you a tool to just trigger one of those waves of inspiration that we were just talking about a second ago. So like I was mentioning at the beginning, the one that does it for me the most is the Ableton Push, but that's only because I use Ableton, and it's because I'm used to it, and it's because, I don't know, it just fits my workflow. But this doesn't apply to everybody. There's no single MIDI controller that works perfectly for everyone out there. If I had to divide them in two main categories, I would have pad-based controllers like this one, like the Launchpad, and I would have keyboard-based controllers like this one or the big keyboard back there. Now, of course, if you're trying to pick a MIDI controller but you already play a real instrument, maybe you play the piano or maybe you play the drums, then you're already gonna be inclined to go one way or the other. For example, if you already played the piano a little bit or maybe a lot, you already know the layout of the keyboard, you already know where the scales are, you already know how to play chords and stuff. So a keyboard controller is probably going to be very intuitive for you. It's just like it's the same exact thing. You don't really need to learn anything new as far as the layout goes. But if you're maybe a drummer or a percussionist or something like that, just like myself, then these pad controllers are much more percussive and much more similar to what a drummer would be used to. With that said though, like I was saying earlier, a MIDI controller is not just meant to be functional, but to me, it's also meant to be inspiring. It's supposed to like add a new perspective to your work that just kind of really makes you think about music a little bit differently. So for example, let's say that you're a guitar player, so you're used to like the shape of the neck of the guitar and you're used to moving like by force between the strings, then pad controllers are going to be actually pretty intuitive for you, because between every like row of pads, you're actually going up a fourth. So it's kind of like a guitar in a way. Where I think it gets really interesting though is when you start mixing your own knowledge of whatever instrument with the capabilities of the controller. For example, let's say that you're a piano player, but you pick up a pad controller. Now you're gonna have to like relearn some chord shapes, and that's gonna give you like a whole new approach to the way that you approach your own chord progressions. It's gonna help you like go out of the box and just do different things that you wouldn't have necessarily done on a layout of like a keyboard. My personal advice, if you're picking your first MIDI controller and you don't really know which direction to go, I would go with like a hybrid one. Like the Akai MPK Mini Mark II is a great one. Mine is missing a key, but generally there's a D right there. So you have a keyboard, you have pads, you have knobs. You can kind of try everything out, and then you can decide over time which direction you want to upgrade, if you want like more pads or if you wanted a bigger keyboard or whatever it is. But you can kind of like experiment with all the different options right on a single cheap controller. Another great option for that is the launchkey Mini by Novation. This one is a really great one. It's very, very similar. They kind of do the same thing. This one has some more pads, a little bit of a different layout, but the general idea is pretty much the same. Cool, so now that we talked about the different kinds of MIDI controllers, let's talk specifically about which one you should buy. As a rule of thumb, when it comes to gear, my approach is always like buy the best that you can afford at that moment. Don't just try to get the best one, period, because it's not going to be a worthy investment. So for example, this is like the third time I mentioned in the video, by the way. My favorite one is the Ableton Push 2. Would I buy that on day one? Like if I started today, would I tell myself to buy it? Absolutely not. It's way too expensive and I wouldn't even know what to do with it. Just like if a friend of mine started taking guitar lessons, I wouldn't advise them to buy like a $3,000 crazy expensive rare guitar. I would tell them like start with like the cheapest like guitar you can find, spend like $100, start seeing if you actually like it, if it's actually what you want to do, and then as you get better, you can buy better and better guitars. So my personal advice would be don't spend a lot. Start with something simple, something cheap, something that you can really afford without it being a big problem, and then just start messing with it. And as you grow as a producer, when you start outgrowing the piece of gear that you bought, then you can start looking into some other like more complex or more expensive or just better options. But always try to make sure that you, the person, the producer, are a step ahead of the gear. So don't get a piece of gear that you have no idea what it even does. You don't know the potential of it because you just started. Get a piece of gear that you fully understand and master it. Then there's going to be a point where you're going to feel like you've outgrown it, where you're going to feel like that's just not enough for what you're trying to achieve. So then you can look into something more expensive. Then you can look into upgrading. But make sure that you are a step ahead or above the gear that you buy. I hope that makes sense. And honestly, if it's your first MIDI controller, I would go with either the Akai MPK Mini Mark II or the Novation Launchkey Mini. They're both like $100, sometimes even less, and they do everything that you need. Like I built my whole music career on this MPK Mini Mark II. It broke my heart when the D broke, but this keyboard has been through a lot and it just kind of like does everything. Even right now, if I were to travel somewhere for like a month or two, I don't know if I would bring the Push because it's really heavy, it's expensive, and I'm scared of breaking it. I would probably just bring one of these and I'd be totally fine. So, in conclusion, buy something that's cheap, buy something that inspires you, something that you're gonna have fun with, and buy something that's gonna help you push your own limits. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and notification bell. We're over 51,000. I mean, the next goal is 100, so we got a long way to go. So hit that button. Also, if you haven't done that yet, make sure to join the Discord. The community is growing. We're well over 3,000 people on there right now, and we got contests going on. It's gonna be like a bi-weekly contest. There's like prizes, there's gonna be sample packs. There's so much stuff going on in the Discord, I don't even remember it all. There's a whole bunch of mods that are keeping track of everything. So the link is in the description. I'll see you on the Discord. Oh, and also for those of you guys that don't know yet, I now have channel memberships. Just click the join button next to the subscribe. After you click the subscribe and the bell, click the join button and my face is gonna pop up. It's gonna explain to you everything. There's a bunch of perks, including like one-on-one Skype calls with me, beat reviews, beat critiques, privately, whole bunch of stuff. So just watch the video, it'll explain you everything. All right, I guess this is it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching the video all the way through. I'll see you next time, and as always, be positive, and positive things will happen.